Okay, so we're going to start with part one, denotation and connotation. So the first thing that we need to talk about to understand how we can analyze individual words is to talk about the definitions of words. Denotation means the strict dictionary definition of a word. So when I want to know what a word means and I go and I look it up in the dictionary, that definition that I read is called the denotation. So for example, for the word home, actually, let's go to connotation first. The definition of connotation, on the other hand, is the emotional and cultural associations that we have with a word. Um, you won't always find those in the dictionary, and a lot of those are dependent on the culture that you grew up in. So now, if I think of an example for home, if I go to the dictionary and I look up the word home, I'm going to see something like the place where one lives permanently, especially as a member of a family or household. So that's the denotative meaning of home. That's the dictionary definition. If I go to the dictionary and I look up home, I'm not going to see the connotations, but just from knowing how that word is used and how that word makes me feel and how we use that word in our culture, some of the connotations of the word home could be the place where one feels comfort or security or love. So notice that I'm not listing synonyms for home. I'm not saying other words that have the same meaning as home. Instead, I'm talking about the broader mood or feeling or effect of the word. So when we talk about connotation, that's what we're talking about. So let's practice for the connotation of the word green. So when I talk about connotations, again, I'm talking about what is the mood or feeling that I get from the word. So for green, one connotative meaning of green is jealousy, because you can say green with envy. Um, Feeling sick or nauseous. Another connotative meaning could be wealth, like money. You could also see environmentally sustainable, like green products, green initiatives, the Green New Deal. So environmentally sustainable. Um, some other ones that we might see are the natural world, nature, natural world. Kind of going along with that, we could see like life, new life, rebirth. So any of these words can be connotations of the word green. When we see the word green in a sentence, it's not going to have all of these connotations at the same time. Um, that would be really difficult to understand. But we can try to understand from the context of the sentence. If the author is using the word green for a particular connotation, we can try to identify what that might be. For part three, words can have positive and negative connotations. So they can have the same denotative meaning. They can mean the same thing from the dictionary, but one of them can seem more positive and one of them can seem more negative. So take a minute and pause this video and try on your own to fill in, out of these two sets of words, observe and spy, which one do you think has the positive connotation and which one do you think has the negative connotation? And after you have done all of those, then unpause the video and we'll review all of them. So between observe and spy, observe has a more positive connotation and spy has a more negative connotation. If you are spying on somebody, it might seem like you're doing something wrong, whereas if you're observing somebody, that doesn't sound like you're doing something wrong or bad. Between nosy and curious, nosy has a more negative connotation and curious has a more positive connotation. When you are being nosy, it's like there's something wrong with that or that's not a good thing to do, whereas being curious can be a good thing to do. Between childish and childlike, childish has a negative connotation and childlike has a positive connotation. They mean the same thing, but if you are told that you're being childish, then you're told you're being like immature. Whereas if you're being childlike, it's like you're being like playful, like a young child. Between youthful and immature, youthful is more positive, immature is more negative. And finally, between cheap and inexpensive, cheap is typically more negative and inexpensive is more positive. Although there are a lot of times when we can say that something is cheap, like a cheap food, and that's like a good thing. But maybe if you think about it in terms of like a purse. like a cheap purse means it's like of poor quality, and it's not going to last for a long time, whereas an inexpensive purse might be like, it's a really good purse and you got a really good deal on it. So now we can connect this and apply it to the title of Lord of the Flies. So I want you to pause the video and take a few minutes to brainstorm what are some of the connotations of Lord and what are some of the connotations of flies. And when you're done, maybe if you brainstormed like 4 or 5 for each, pause the video and I'll show you what I'm thinking. So for Lord, some of the connotations that I can think of are holy. I'm thinking of like Jesus, Messiah, or like a savior. And that's kind of more positive. A more negative connotation of Lord might be like a ruler, a superior. If we say you are lording over somebody, means you're being bossy. But typically, Lord is like somebody of high stature, somebody with high status. And again, we really get this religious connotation from Christianity. Okay, flies, on the other hand, flies are typically pretty negative. Like some of the connotations of flies are like dirty, garbage, rotting, filth. I don't know. Tiny, insignificant. Replaceable or expendable. Like nobody cares or notices if a fly is gone because there are millions of them. Like a swarm. Maybe more along this idea of like unclean. Like flies buzz around dead bodies or dead animals. So then we can get sort of a connotation of death and decay. Okay, so that's kind of interesting to think about where we're at now with where we read in Lord of the Flies. Is there a character who is the Lord of the Flies right now? Is there somebody that we can see as a ruler or a superior, a savior, someone holy, somebody with high status? And could that character be ruling over a large group, swarming, millions of them, tiny, insignificant, unclean, rotting, death, decay? I don't know. That's not a question that has an answer to it at all. It's just something to think about as we apply the title of the book with what we can understand now about connotation. So this is the end of the first video. Now you're going to go to the next part. The next video is going to talk about how to apply this idea of connotation to something that we call a close reading.